Well, hey folks, got a super exciting episode of Northern Outlier today. As you can see, I got a new toy for the shop, finally broke down and got a new table saw. No more cutting boards with a circular saw. So today, we're going to be doing the unboxing and the first impressions of the saw. So make sure you stick around, hit that like button first of all, hit subscribe if you haven't already, stay tuned and enjoy. Okay, so I've been wanting a table saw for some time now. I've had a lot of projects where I've needed one and I haven't had one. And it's a pain in the butt. It's time consuming because the only way to rip boards is with a circular saw, and you're drawing little lines, you're measuring and marking your line, drawing a line or chalking a line on your board, and then ripping it with a circular saw. It's just not ideal. So finally broke down, I got a table saw. Yes, it's a DeWalt table saw. I'm the DeWalt fanboy, right? But I did look at other saws, and I'll talk about that here in a second. But I finally got the table saw. It's going to be a huge improvement overall to the shop. I'm really excited to use it. So let's get to it. Okay, so in choosing a saw, I did look at other saws, believe it or not. I know I'm the DeWalt fanboy, but I always want the best tool for its purpose, for what I'm using it for. So I did a lot of research. I looked at a few different saws, but I did have a few requirements that had to be met. So the requirements that the table saw had to meet, number one, it had to be portable. So I do jobs both inside and outside my shop, so I wanted to be able to move the saw around. Some of the bigger, fancier saws out there, more expensive, are kind of big, awkward saws that are meant to literally sit in place in a wood shop. I didn't want that. I wanted something I can move around. The next thing I needed was it needed to accept a dado stack. So if you don't know what a dado stack is, look it up. I'm going to be using it when I make the joints on my workbenches coming up. But essentially it's a couple of blades and chippers usually. Kind of takes large swaths of the wood. So the saw needed to accept a dado stack. Last thing, requirement is it had to be under $1,000. I was on a bit of a budget, so some saws are super expensive. But yeah, it had to be under $1,000. So those were the three requirements, and that's what I did. That's what I was basing my research off of when I was looking at all the different saws. So I looked at 3 different saws when I was looking and doing my research. So I looked at a Bosch. The Bosch was the GTS 15-10 15 amp job site saw with the gravity rise stand. Very nice stand. The other one was a Skillsaw brand, SPT99-11, worm drive saw and stand. And then lastly, obviously, I looked at the DeWalt DWE7491X. The X refers to the stand. It also, you could get it with a rolling stand as well. This just happened to be what the store had at the time. So I obviously went with the DeWalt saw. This is their higher end table saw. I believe they make 2 table saws. This one's been around for a while, the 7491 model, and tons of positive reviews. If you Google it or look at other YouTube videos, there's lots of comparisons with table saws, and this one ranks at the top or comes out on top most of the time. And comparing it even to that Bosch and that Skillsaw, it just had a few more things going for it. The one being that it was more accurate right out of the box. Yeah, definitely just an all-around good saw with good reviews. And obviously, yeah, I love DeWalt, so that's what I went with. It was a bit of a no-brainer. So you might be asking, what are the specs on this saw? You probably want to know a little bit about it. I got my notes here. It's a 10-inch job site table saw. It has a 15 amp motor, 32.5-inch rip capacity, which is quite a bit. I think it was the most of those 3 saws and even a bunch of others. It was the biggest rip capacity for a job site table saw. And it's got a 3 1/8 inch depth of cut at 90 degrees. And 2 1/4 inch at 45 degrees. It takes a dado stack, which is perfect, and it had a 3-year limited warranty, which is another great thing. Okay, so that's just kind of the Cole's Notes version, you know, the basic, most important specs. I'm gonna stop boring you and, you know, let's get into this. Let's open it up and take a look at it, put it together. You'll have to excuse my mess too in the shop. I got so many things going on. I've been like undercoating vehicles. I gotta do a brake job on my car, so there's stuff kind of all over the place. It's not as clean as it should be. I feel like I should put this on its side. I feel like there's a lot of parts included with this, but I guess there's some assembly. I don't know. Silly me. Thought it would be assembled out of the box, but I guess I should clarify too. I knew the stand wouldn't be assembled. I knew I would have to do that, what I'm doing right here right now, but I figured the saw would be all put together, which it was. There was just a few accessories which were loose and some adjustments that needed to be made. So, and we'll get into that here shortly. Okay, it's on there. They tell you to put the front tube hooked under that one lip. That'll be the front of the saw with all the mechanisms and the buttons and whatnot. Dust collection port would be at the back. So now I just have to put those carriage bolts in. So, got it together. The bolts on the front side were a bit of a pain in the butt, just because they were tucked in behind. Disregard my comment on the height. The height is great. You know, if you're putting something through, that's probably the perfect height for it. The stand just looked a little bit short, so now that we got it together, I'm going to go through the instructions. There's a few things they talk about. It looks like it's all assembled. Like the blade and the throat plate and everything. But I'm just going to go through so I understand how to do it and show you guys. And yeah, we'll just probably take it apart, make sure everything's tight. Yeah, there's a few other pieces that should go on. So yeah, we'll do that. And yeah, and then maybe we'll test it out. So they give you these two tools. That's what you're using to tighten it. So. Okay, so blade's tight. We're going to throw back on the throat plate. Okay, so the fence. It was hanging upside down underneath here. So I've gone ahead and unlocked that. I'm going to put it in a position here. So essentially you're just, before, it was hanging upside down kind of. You want to line up the hooks on these and then lock it. So now that's good. I do want to point out too, in order to move the fence, this is your knob, but there is a lock button here. So you're going to pull up on that. So that basically releases it. And then you can slide that to your adjustment and then lock it back in place. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to install I believe this is the through cutting blade guard. It comes with a non-through cutting riving knife, I think it's called, that's sitting right here. So we need to remove that because you can't have both in there at the same time. So in order to do that, there's a lever on the side. So you basically, and I can show you a close up, you pull on that lever, which then opens up the mechanism so I can slide that right out. And then we'll pop in this new one here, and that should be it for that. Okay, so one of the next things we're going to do is we're going to install this anti-kickback assembly that sits back here. I don't know if many people install this, but honestly, I've never used a table saw. I'm honestly having a Final Destination kind of moment here, so anything for safety purposes I might just put on and see how it goes to start out with. So yeah, when you put this in here, you're going to press down and depress this, and it goes into this slot. So I believe that is now locked into place, and it just sits like that. So I must say, DeWalt really thought about everything on this saw. Now that we've got it assembled, we've got a few extra pieces. Well, what do you do with those? You know, you could just throw them to the side. DeWalt's actually built in storage hooks kind of for these. So it's all with the saw. You're not gonna misplace anything. I'll show you those now. So for your tools, they just slide in here. And then this little piece pops up and locks those right into place. So that extra riving knife, it just goes right here. So you just pull this out, push up, you can turn this, and that locks that into place. Anyways, I think what I might do now is I might just check the blade to make sure it's, you know, straight. So I'll use my square for that, and yeah, we'll check that and we'll just see how square it is. If we have to make an adjustment, we will, and then I'll probably test it out. So it is pretty good overall. It is off by a slight hair, I think. Now you're probably asking, you're probably saying, well, how do you know your square is square? That's a good point. So I tried it both ways, just to see if there's any, maybe if one side was off compared to the other, but it's about the same. So there is a bit of a gap. So I'm going to go ahead and make an adjustment on that. So in order to make that adjustment, this part here, you're going to have to unlock this lever, which then gives you your bevel. And there's an Allen key screw here. You're just going to loosen that up. So now that that's kind of loose, I'm going to take the square, put it against the blade again, get it until it's perfectly flat or square against the blade. And then I believe you just tighten up your screw and lock that into position based on however it's going to sit. So I'll just go ahead, I'll show you how to do it. So anyways, after you adjust that, then you want to look at the gauge down here where it's got the angle. So you want that red marker to be at 0. In my case, it was slightly off. It was maybe half a degree, if that, quarter of a degree. So very minimal, but still. So then basically I loosened that screw and just moved the red marker till it was at 0. So now it's all set. So we should be all square. I put the blade guard back on. I think I'm going to fire this up and just do a few quick cuts and kind of see how it works. So I put on my eye protection, very important when you're using saws. I highly recommend safety first. I always get little bits of wood chips flying off my miter saw, so the table saw I'm expecting the same. So safety glasses. Saw also came with this, a push stick, which is really nice. So it was just kind of on the side here, the fence, just kind of clipped in. So maybe we'll use that. I don't know what I'm going to cut. I'm just going to cut an old board. So we can see that it runs. Blade didn't fly off and kill me. I'm going to take this 2x4, it's just a kind of an old scrap 2x4, and I'm just going to try ripping it, and we'll see how it works. So you could probably tell I was a little bit awkward. I've never used a table saw before, and I'm terrified. I thought I was gonna, get sliced open or something. So I ripped that board. Very nice clean cut. I might have to do some more testing with other boards, so maybe I'll kind of just to make sure because I might have to adjust the fence. I don't know if the fence is particularly perfectly aligned, and I think there's an adjustment for that, so I might have to do that. But otherwise, the actual cut itself was very clean. One thing I will say, you probably saw it in the video, I don't know if this is meant for dust collection, it didn't do anything. There's sawdust that came out the backside, so I don't know. I'll probably be using the big one on the back, and then I'm gonna have to figure out my dust collection system because the connection is different, so I don't know. We got that problem again. So overall, I'm satisfied with it so far. It seems like a quality product by DeWalt. I'm not going to give it a 10 out of 10. I'll probably give it a 8.5 or 9 out of 10, let's say. And again, that's just initial first impressions with doing one cut. I'm going to be using it a lot here coming up lately. I'm going to be making some workbenches and ripping 2x12s into 2x4s. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, so far 8.5, 9 out of 10, I would say, just because of those few kind of adjustment things. But I've never owned a table saw. That's probably what you have to do with every saw. I don't know. Tell me down below what you think on that or what your experience is. But overall, pretty good so far. So there you have it, folks. That is the unboxing, the assembly, and the first initial impressions of the DeWalt table saw, DWE7491X. Overall, great saw so far. A few little issues out of the box I mentioned there. We're going to be using it more coming up here. I am building some workbenches, so stay tuned for that. I'm going to put a link for the saw down below where you can buy it on Amazon. It was a really great price last time I checked. And anyways, yeah, that's it. I hope you like this video. Hit that like button. Hit subscribe down below if you haven't already. It really helps out the channel. Stay tuned. We'll see you next time. Thank you.